Do you ever feel like you're just waiting? Like you're sitting in a waiting room, flipping through old magazines, checking the clock, convinced that your real life is happening somewhere else, without you. Maybe you know that feeling intimately. It's that knot in your stomach on a Sunday evening, the Sunday scaries that have nothing to do with your job and everything to do with the suspicion that another week has passed where you didn't become the person you thought you'd be. Or maybe it's staring up at a ceiling fan at 2 a.m., listening to the hum of the blades, wondering if this is it, if this is all there is.
It is exhausting, trying to force doors open that seem bolted shut. You might feel like you've been running on a treadmill, sweating, trying, pushing, but the scenery never changes. But here's the thing. What if the problem isn't your lack of effort? What if the problem is just how you are viewing the transition? In The Pivot Year, Brianna Wiest talks about this space between where you are and where you want to be. It's uncomfortable, it's dark, it feels heavy. But think about a seed.
When a seed is buried in the dirt, it's surrounded by darkness. It's under pressure. If the seed had a consciousness, it might think it's been buried, that it's the end. But for the seed, being buried isn't the conclusion. It's the planting. It is the very beginning of the most important growth of its life. You might not be stuck. You might just be planted. And that shift in perspective changes everything about how we handle the dark.
And once you realize you are planted, not buried, you realize you need a guide for how to grow in the dark, a way to navigate that space between who you were and who you are becoming. Welcome to The Last Read, Books for Your Ears, Wisdom for Your Life. If you are looking to decode the instruction manual for being human, make sure you subscribe now so you never miss a day of wisdom. Today, we are opening the pages of The Pivot Year, which is essentially a map for the in-between. It is for that specific, uncomfortable season where the old version of you doesn't fit anymore, but the new version hasn't quite arrived yet.
We often think that to change our lives, we need a sledgehammer, that we have to burn everything to the ground, quit the job, move to a new city, and start over with a bang. We wait for a massive breakthrough to sweep us away. But the Pivot Year suggests that the secret to changing your life is actually much quieter. It isn't about destruction. It is about a subtle, almost invisible shift in perspective. Brianna Wiest writes that you do not change your life when you fix every piece and call it healing. You change your life when you become comfortable being happy here, even while you are still moving forward.
It is not about dismantling the old. It is about slowly, consistently building the new. If you want to hold this map in your hands, we have put a link to the hard copy right in the description for you. But to understand why this specific map resonates so deeply with millions of people right now, you have to understand the architect behind it, a woman who has become something of a modern philosopher for a generation that is tired of simply achieving and is ready to start becoming. That architect is Brianna Wiest. Now, you might know her name from the bestseller lists. Maybe you've seen The Mountain Is You sitting on a friend's coffee table, or you've scrolled past quotes from 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think on Instagram. But to call her just an author feels like it's missing the point. Brianna Wiest has really emerged as a modern philosopher for the burnout generation. Think about it. We live in a culture that is obsessed with the external, the hustle, the grind, the accolades. We are constantly told to fix ourselves, to optimize our routines, to run faster. But Wiest stops us in our tracks. Her background is in exploring emotional intelligence, and she has this uncanny, almost spooky ability to put words to feelings you didn't even know you had until you read them on the page.
She doesn't write about how to get more done. She writes about why we resist doing the things we actually want to do. She shifts the conversation entirely, moving the goalpost from achieving to becoming. And that distinction is critical. Achieving is about what you get. Becoming is about who you are when things are quiet. She argues that real change isn't about forcing a new life into existence through sheer willpower. It's about dissolving the internal blocks, like self-sabotage and fear, that keep us stuck in the old one.
It is a softer, more intuitive approach to growth, one that values the internal shift over the external milestone. And this philosophy, this idea that you don't need to burn your life down to change it, is the foundation of the pivot year. It sets the stage for a concept that is less about jumping off a cliff and more about navigating the fog. Because once you stop chasing achievement and start focusing on becoming, you inevitably find yourself in a strange, often uncomfortable place, a place Wiest calls the in-between. The in-between is actually how Wiest defines the core concept of the book, the pivot itself. We often think of a pivot as a sharp, sudden movement, like a basketball player planting a foot and spinning in a new direction. We think of it as a jump, leaving one job for another, ending a relationship, moving across the country. But Wiest is careful to distinguish a pivot from a jump. She writes that a pivot is not necessarily an external leap, it is an internal turn. It is a subtle shift in your center of gravity. She defines this period as the space between no longer and not yet. It is that strange, weightless void where you have let go of the old version of your life, but the new version hasn't formed yet. Think of it like a trapeze artist.
You have released the bar behind you. You are floating in midair, high above the ground. You can see the next bar swinging towards you, but you haven't caught it yet. You are suspended in nothingness. Most of us are terrified of this space. We want to hold on to the old bar until we have a firm grip on the new one. We want safety. We want a guarantee. But Wiest argues that the magic only happens in the suspension. It is in that terrifying moment of freefall that you learn you can survive without holding on to something external. It is where you stop looking for a map and start building a compass.
That is a key distinction she makes throughout the pivot year. A map is a set of directions someone else drew for you. It tells you exactly where to go and how to get there. It's safe, but it's rigid. A compass, on the other hand, doesn't give you the route. It just gives you a direction. It requires you to trust your own intuition, to trust that true north feeling in your gut, even when you can't see the destination. Wiest says that during a pivot year, you don't need a new 5-year plan. You don't need a detailed blueprint. You just need to know which way is forward for you and have the courage to take one step into the fog. But, and this is the hard truth she doesn't shy away from, you cannot step into that fog while you are still weighed down by everything you were trying to leave behind. You cannot catch the new bar if your hands are still full of the old one. And that requires a process that is often more painful than the uncertainty itself. It requires letting go. There is a misconception that becoming is just about adding things to your life, new habits, new goals, new relationships. But Wiest reminds us that you cannot build a new life on top of the old one without the foundation crumbling. You don't just layer the new version of yourself over the past version. You have to make space. Think about it like cleaning out a chaotic closet. To truly organize it, you can't just shove a few new shirts in the empty gaps. You have to pull everything out first. You have to pile it all on the floor. You have to look at things you haven't worn in years, things that don't fit, things that have moth holes but sentimental value, and you have to decide what stays and what goes.
And in that middle stage, when everything is on the floor and nothing is back on the hangers yet, the room looks messier than when you started. It looks like a disaster. That is what the pivot year feels like. It is the mess you have to make to organize your soul. One of the most striking lines from the book is the reminder that your new life is going to cost you your old one. It's going to cost you your comfort zone. It might cost you being understood by people who only knew who you used to be. And that comes with a very real sense of grief. Wiest validates this heaviness. She explains that we often mourn our old selves, not because that life was perfect, but because it was familiar. That version of you, the one you are shedding, protected you. It survived things. It got you here. So when you feel that sadness, it isn't a sign that you're making a mistake. It's just the cost of admission.
It's that specific, hollow feeling you get when you're packing up your first apartment. You know it's time to move to a bigger place or a better city. You want to go, but staring at those empty walls still hurts. Or the hesitation you feel when you go to delete old photos from your phone to free up storage.
You know you need the space for new memories, but deleting the old ones feels like erasing a part of your history. Wiest advises us to let what is heavy hurt and let what is healing lighten. She tells us that the journey isn't just about placing down the baggage, it's about learning how to stop picking it back up. Because once you finally put it down, once you clear out the closet and delete the old files, you are left with something that can feel even more terrifying than the weight. You are left with empty space. You are left with the silence. You are left staring into a fog where the new path hasn't revealed itself yet.
And that silence, it's heavy. When you're standing in that fog, your first instinct is to panic. You want a map. You want a guarantee. You want to know exactly where you're going, how long it will take to get there, and who you're going to be when you arrive. But Wiest suggests that this not knowing isn't actually a problem. It's a portal. She writes that when you do not know what is next, you enter the realm of infinite potential. Think about that. If you knew exactly what was coming, you'd just be repeating the past. The only way to get something you've never had is to walk into a future you can't predict. This brings us to a critical shift in how we approach our lives, the difference between planning and trusting.
We live in a culture that obsesses over 5-year plans. We want to engineer the outcome before we've even started the car. But Wiest argues that anxiety is usually just the result of trying to predict a future that hasn't happened yet. We exhaust ourselves trying to solve problems that only exist in our imagination. There's a famous metaphor for this: driving at night. Imagine you are driving a car in pitch black darkness. You can only see as far as your headlights extend, maybe 200 feet. You can't see the destination. You can't see the horizon. You can't even see the next town, but you can make the entire journey just seeing those 200 feet. As long as you keep moving forward, the light reveals the next stretch of road and then the next. You don't need to see the whole path to get home. You just need to trust that the road will be there as you move forward. That is the essence of the pivot. It's moving from asking what if to asking what is. What if is about fear. What if I fail? What if I run out of money? What if I'm alone forever? What is brings you back to the headlights. What is happening right now? What is the one true thing I can do in this moment? Wiest reminds us that the courage with which you enter today will become the fate that you meet tomorrow. The present moment is the only place where you have any power. You can't control the destination, but you can control the steering wheel right now. And the irony is, when you stop trying to leap all the way to the finish line, you realize you don't actually need to make a giant jump at all. You just need to make a microscopic adjustment. Because navigating the fog doesn't require a grand gesture. It just requires one tiny, almost invisible shift. Tiny, almost invisible shift. And that brings us to the real work, the daily practice. We live in a culture that is obsessed with the quantum leap, the viral moment, the overnight success story. We want the transformation to be instant, cinematic, dramatic. But Wiest is very clear that the pivot year isn't about one giant, earth-shattering jump. It is about 365 small, ordinary days. There is a massive myth we need to debunk here. The myth that your life changes in a single moment of brilliance. It doesn't. It changes in the quiet moments that nobody else sees. Think about it like compound interest in a bank account. If you deposit a few dollars today, it doesn't look like much. You certainly aren't rich tomorrow. But if you keep doing that, day after day, year after year, the growth isn't just additive, it's exponential. The same is true for a plant. You water it, and for days, maybe weeks, you see absolutely nothing happening above the soil. It would be easy to assume it's not working, but underneath, the roots are establishing themselves, preparing to support the growth that is about to break the surface. Wiest argues that the pivot is actually a series of these microscopic choices. It is choosing to drink a glass of water instead of a soda, not because you're on a diet, but because you are respecting your body.
It is choosing 10 minutes of silence over 10 minutes of noise or social media scrolling. It is choosing yourself and your own peace over the immediate gratification of external validation. These might seem insignificant in the moment. You might think, does one glass of water really matter? Does one moment of silence really change my life? And the answer is, on its own, maybe not, but collectively, they change the entire trajectory. These small pivots are not just actions you take, they are votes you are casting for the type of person you are becoming. And that is where the magic really happens, because as you stack these days up, as you let that interest compound, you aren't just changing what you do, you are fundamentally changing who you are. And as we're about to see, you don't get what you want in this life, you get who you are.
You have to become the kind of person who deserves the life you want. It's a phrase that stops you in your tracks, isn't it? We spend so much time making vision boards, writing down our goals, obsessing over the things we want to acquire, the job, the relationship, the peace of mind. But Brianna Wiest reminds us of a fundamental truth that often gets lost in the noise. You don't get what you want, you get who you are. The logic follows that if you want a different life, you cannot remain the same person. You cannot carry your old habits, your old fears, and your old reactions into a new reality and expect them to fit. Your old self is no longer suited to manage the life you are trying to build. So, how do we bridge that gap? We start by acting as if.
Now, I don't mean fake it till you make it. This isn't about pretense, it's about practice. It is about embodying the energy of your future self, right here in the messy middle of today. I want you to try something for a moment. Visualize the version of you who has already made it, the version of you who has navigated this pivot year and come out the other side. How does that person handle stress? When a problem arises, do they panic or do they pause? How do they speak to themselves when they make a mistake? Is it with harshness or with compassion? How do they dress? How do they walk into a room? There is an old adage about dressing for the job you want, not the job you have. The same applies to your life. You have to show up for the life you want before it actually arrives. If your future self is calm, practice stillness today. If your future self is healthy, choose the nourishment they would choose today. If your future self is confident, stand up a little straighter today. You are signaling to yourself and to the world that you are ready. You are aligning your internal reality with the external one you are calling in. You aren't waiting for the change to happen so you can become that person. You are becoming that person so the change can happen. And the most beautiful part is, you don't have to wait for a specific date on the calendar to begin this transformation. Because as we are about to see, the timeline is entirely up to you.
Which brings us to the most important realization of this entire journey. We've spent this time dissecting the anatomy of a pivot, exploring how to detach from who you were, how to find the courage to sit in the unknown, and how to start acting like the person you're becoming. But if there is one thing you take away from Brianna Wiest's words, let it be this: you are not waiting for your pivot year to begin. You are already in it. Just by being here, by listening, by questioning, by feeling that quiet restlessness that says there must be more, you have already initiated the shift. The pivot isn't a single explosive moment where everything changes overnight. It's a series of micro shifts, a collection of small, quiet choices where you decide to listen to your inner voice instead of your fear.
If you've enjoyed this deep dive, I can't recommend the physical book enough. The Pivot Year is designed as a daily companion. 365 meditations, one for every day of the year, meant to be that gentle voice in your ear when the old patterns try to creep back in. We've popped a link to it in the description so you can grab a copy and keep this momentum going. And speaking of momentum, if you want to keep fueling your growth and discovering books that actually change the way you think, make sure you're subscribed to The Last Read. We're building a community of people who are ready to stop skimming the surface and start diving deep. So, here is your final thought. There is a seductive trap in thinking we need a fresh calendar to make a fresh start. We tell ourselves we'll start on Monday or we'll change our lives on January 1st. But Brianna reminds us that the calendar is arbitrary. You don't need a new year to have a new life. You just need a new thought. You need a moment of brave honesty where you look at where you are and decide, this is where the old story ends. The pivot doesn't happen when the clock strikes 12. It happens the moment you decide you are no longer available for a life that doesn't feel like your own. That moment is right now. Thank you for listening.